Welcome to the Mighty Baker Podcast. I am Pete Tidwell, your host. I am a custom cake artist, bakery business coach, certified life coach, and the CEO at my bakery business, The Mighty Baker. You might have seen me winning Food Network's Cake Wars, competing on Halloween Baking Championship, or have tasted one of my delicious custom cakes or desserts. Either way, I am so happy that you're here today. I'm obsessed with the art of baking and caking, but I'm even more passionate about helping others live a happy life. Join me here every Wednesday as I share highlights and learnings from my ongoing journey as a bakery business owner. I will also be sharing positive mindset tips and business and life tips along the way, as well as inviting some of my baker friends that I have met over the years on TV baking competition shows. It's going to be a blast, and we are going to have so much fun because here in the world of the Mighty Baker, cake is life. So come on, and let's jump right in the mixing bowl and see what is being mixed up and discussed in this week's episode of the Mighty Baker Podcast. Let's go.
Think about it. When has anything ever been perfect?
Never.
It's just like cakes, right? Cakes are never perfect. You always have a back to the cake. That's life. Nothing is ever perfect in life. And the little things that aren't perfect is what makes it fun.
Look at that.
That's the intro right there. So, all right. As you can see, today is going to be extremely epic because I not only have my first official guest on my podcast, but it's also like my greatest friend in this whole like adventure of mine in the cake industry. And I just, it's been a fun journey, you and I. It's been great. So she's not only joined me on some of my crazy adventures, but she's had her own plenty of crazy adventures as well, just within cake and sugar art and everything. And I have been very grateful that our paths have crossed over the years because it's really helped me, and I hope it's helped you in the process as well as we've gone through this. So I am stoked to just have fun talking with my friend Catrina today, and I'm also excited for all of you to get to know her as well. We're going to ask her all about her adventures in cake and sugar art, competitions, TV show competitions, and just how cakes and desserts play a part in her life. And we're also going to talk about how we first met and kind of jump into that a little bit and how we started working together. But before that, there was, of course, a Catrina that I didn't know before that. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, maybe how you got into art or into cake, into baking? What are kind of some of those roots?
For sure. First off, I'm super excited to be your first guest. I feel very honored. As far as arts and cakes, growing up, art was that was just my thing. That was the thing that I was drawn to. I was any medium I could get my hands on. The underside of my parents' table still to this day has my doodles.
Yes.
They've said, oh, we should probably paint over that, but they're still there. So all my little tiny 7-8-year-old doodles are on the underside of their table. It's never going away. Sometimes I like to look underneath there and see how far I've come.
Okay, so next time I'm over at your parents' house, I want to come see it.
You come see it. Yeah. But then, art's just always been my thing. At a young age, my mom gave me some polymer clay as a Christmas present, just as something fun, always looking for new mediums, and that really jump-started my love for modeling and sculpting and things like that. High school career, I focused entirely on art. I took every art class I could. I had an amazing relationship with my art teacher. In fact, I still talk to her today. She's just amazing. So I really loved her. And then as I grew, different art forms and things like that, growing up with Cake-wise, my mom always would make our birthday cakes every single time.
Mine too.
Right?
It's lucky to have that.
I know.
Yeah.
Mom is amazing. And, I grew up in a family of bakers. My grandma, still to this day, at almost 90 years old, makes bread all the time.
No way.
Oh, yes.
She's awesome.
Oh,
I've met her before, so.
She is fantastic. And she always had bread and she always has cookies. And same with my mom. My mom's a big baker. I mean, she'll tell you now she doesn't bake, but she is. And she always has the most delicious treats. And so growing up, we always had birthday cakes, just always. And she'll tell you that they weren't fancy. But to me, it was amazing. I'd never had a store-bought cake in my life as a birthday cake because mom made them. So was it piped flowers? Was it cute little unicorn figurines that she'd put, or snowmen, or whatever it was? But it always was special and my interests.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
know it's, and mom they're always delicious too. So, as I became a mom myself, when I had my oldest daughter, McKaylee, and it was her first birthday, I went, I'm gonna do it. That's what my mom did. That's what I want for my kids. I don't want my kids to ever feel like their birthday was just go to the store and buy something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
sometimes you have to do that.
Sometimes you have to do that. Life is crazy. But for me, it was something that I could do for my kids. And so I made her first cake, and it was not good.
The first cake stories.
The first cake stories are always, but not only was it my first birthday cake for my daughter, I actually pulled out fondant for the first time with it.
That's amazing. Brave right there.
Brave. Now, did I cover a cake in fondant? No. I made little figurines, back to the joy of having the experience with the polymer clay.
Yeah.
And so, it was what it was, but I went, this is fun. And so a girlfriend of mine, she kind of did the same thing with her daughter. And so it's like, we could probably do cakes. And so I just kind of started playing a little bit, and just every birthday I would make a cake, and that's just kind of how it all started, the love of it.
And there's such a nostalgia just around cake in of itself, right? There's such nostalgia, and it's all in those emotions that you're describing there.
Cakes and treats and baked goods, it's just, anytime I think of homemade bread, I think of my grandma. Anytime I think of chocolate chip cookies, it's my mom. And it's that warm embrace from them. It's the generations that have come before me that have made these recipes that I get to enjoy today. And it's a family affair, and it's just a language of love. I mean, sugar's delicious.
Well, and there's a good lesson, I think, for all of us right there in, Catrina and I, right before we started recording today, we were talking about how, life sometimes is just kind of feels a little bit drab sometimes. Go bake yourself some cookies and just enjoy your life for a minute, because you can enjoy it for a minute and just put everything aside and eat some cake, eat a cookie. I know sugar's not usually recommended by many people these days, but sugar still serves a purpose in my life, at least.
Into that. Let's just have some cookies. It's okay.
Let's celebrate.
Every day.
Oh, man. Okay, so before we get into where you and I met then, so from between the time of you making cakes for your kids and those kind of things, what brought you from that to showing up at the Springville cake competition in, I don't even know what year it was, but when we first met?
It was just one of those, I realized it was something I could do, and I enjoyed it, and I started making birthday cakes for more than just my kids. Family members, friends saw that I, post a picture on Facebook or wherever, and they're like, oh, hey, would you do that? And I just started slowly getting better and, a little more confident in my skills. And then actually how I came about the Springville art show with the cake competition is my sweet grandma.
That's amazing.
I know, right? We have this sweet little publication, down in good old Payson, little city newspaper, and they had advertised for cake decorating competition. And for me, I struggled, especially younger and newer into the art form, that with self-doubt and just I'm not that good. I just make them on the side. And really, to be honest, I still struggle with that from time to time.
I do too.
Right? Of I'm not I'm not that good. No, I don't know. I whatever. But my grandma's like, you really should do this. You really should do this. And it was just so far out of my comfort zone. And for some reason, I just went, okay. And I signed up for it. And at that point, the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
That's that having the confidence to put my self-doubts to the side and say, okay, I'm going to try something.
Was that a mixture between like mustering up your own self-confidence, or was it a combination between that and other people saying like, Catrina, you can do this?
It always takes a village, right? With everything you do. And I had a lot of support. I had a lot of family support, a lot of friends support. They're like, no, you're really good at this. You should do this. You should do this. And it was, I'd been hearing that, and it was finally putting that self-doubt far enough away that I went, okay, nope, I'm going to try. Because if I don't try, what's the worst, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to go and make a cake, and I'll learn, and I'll see other artists, and it'll teach me to grow. Or I just stay in the shadows and I just don't try anything. And at that point, how do you get better? How do you further yourself? How do you, further an art form that you like, or anything in life, really? If you're not willing to try and put yourself out there, even if it's scary and even if it's hard and you don't believe in yourself, if you don't try, what good comes from it?
I'm gonna hand this to Catrina. She's gonna be the host. She's speaking wisdom words over here. I love it. So I'll preface this a little bit, and then I'll hand it over to you to hear your side of this bit. But so Catrina and we met at this cake competition that we're talking about in Springville. It was the first one I had ever competed in as well. I hadn't done any competitions before. I had just been baking from home, trying to do some things. So I decided to compete. And it was a different type of competition because we actually finished the cakes there that year. They changed it the next year. But I remember going there, and I remember being so nervous because I was like one of the only dudes there. I was like this young kid trying to get into cake decorating. I felt very out of my place, and I didn't know what I got myself into. I was super stoked, but I was like, I don't know what I got into. And I tried talking to a few of the other competitors, and a lot of people were very closed off, and like I almost kind of got to the point where I was like, I guess I'm just not going to talk to anybody. I'm just going to go sit in my corner and do my own thing because like nobody wants to talk to me. But then can't remember exactly how our conversation started out, but I started talking to Catrina that was right next door, right next to me in our stations, and we ended up hitting it off. But I want to hear from like your side, like how did that go? How did that competition go for you? All that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely the same. First competition, super, super nervous. And the fact that you had to finish it live, that was super intimidating. I mean, it's one thing to put together a cake in your own kitchen with all your own things with, you can control the outside forces of what's going to happen, but then to show up with your tools and go, okay, well, you've got this much time, let's do this. It was hard. And I'm sure they're all really nice people, but from my memories, like nobody talked to anyone. It was sad. They're all just kind of very standoffish, like you said, and I'm sure a lot of that came from they're focusing on their own thing, right?
Exactly. They're dealing with the same thing,
right? The same emotions. And luckily, you and I were put right next to each other. There was a little walkway in between us, but at least like you would talk and I would talk. And I remember you came over because you were low on fondant. Do you remember that? Yeah. You had to go get more fondant from the store. Unfortunately, all of my fondant was the wrong color.
I remember sending my wife to the store.
Yes. Your sweet wife had to run to the Walmart and find fondant. It was just one of those things, but it was that start of that conversation, and it was, okay, no, tell me, oh, yeah, what do you do? Oh, what are you doing there? And it was just that instant, I don't know, instant friendship, to be completely honest. I walked away that day and I just went, holy cow, this is a friend forever. Like, this is just the neatest guy ever. It really is. Come on. I'll toot your horn a little bit. You're flipping fantastic.
Hey, thank you.
But no, it was that sense of camaraderie. It was that sense of helping each other out, seeing somebody in a problem and being like, hey, I can help. I have this tool. Can I help you? You can help me. And, the words of encouragement. Your cake was amazing. It was this coolest. It was this box of chocolates. I remember it. Right. I remember it. They had the chocolates were gorgeous. And it was just a really, really fun, crazy intimidating, but super, super fun competition.
It was. And you did like a motorized thing in yours, or was that the year after?
Oh yeah, no, I got crazy.
That's a different story,
the first year it was a topsy-turvy,
which that's right.
I'd never done. And it was a square topsy-turvy, which I don't know what I was thinking there. But I think it was Life is Sweet or something like that was the theme. And
a teapot.
I had a piece of cake, another cake, a fake piece of cake, and a teacup with that up at the top. So, I mean, even looking back at that one, I'm like, oh, that was so not the best.
So
I didn't know enough.
But it's so interesting though, because we'll get into this, but so like since then, years now after, we've done so many things that are so much harder than that first competition. Right? It's interesting to look back, but I think it's so important to point out, like you did, of like that right there was a big jump in self-confidence to actually like that would have, at least for me, it was a big boost. Like, okay, I did this competition. I can actually like, okay, I can compete. Now what do I do next?
That was exactly it. Is like, okay, I got that out of under my belt and I'm okay now. And this is something I can do and I can succeed at. And the good thing with competition, at least for me, that I've found and why I keep continuing to enter competitions is that every time I do it, I see something that somebody else is doing and I want to know how to do that. So after that first competition, I think it was the lady who took first in our division, she'd done sugar flowers and they were gorgeous. And I'd never seen or done a sugar flower before because, again, self-taught. I bought a couple books when I really got into it by Colette Peters. Peters? Yeah. That's who I bought books on, and I read those, but that was it. I didn't look up other people or anything like that, and my vision was so narrow of what cake was, and I went to this competition, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these gravity-defying things. I'm seeing sugar flowers, and I just went, holy cow, like, I'm going to learn how to do that. And I did. And I went home, and I did all my research, and I learned how to do sugar flowers on my own from that competition.
And you're amazing at sugar flowers. So there we go. Well, like, but see, that's such a cool thing though, because I think like as you push yourself to do hard things and you actually do them, you gain the self-confidence, but usually every time there's something to learn from that experience that you can then just move on and build with.
And it's being able to push through the failures, because I can make some okay flowers now, but at the beginning, they were horrible. They're nasty. They just, they didn't look real. The petals were too thick. They looked fake. The painting wasn't right. But it's that trial and error. And I have found being self-taught and that and just learning on my own, I'm not confined to a this is how you do it aspect of things, right? A lot of people who have that strict education, it's this is how you do it. Whereas for you and I, it's how can we do this? Let's think about this. And hey, we might go about it a really crazy way, and it might take longer than what it normally would, but we get there and we can get it to do what we need it to do, and we learn different ways and shortcuts and new things, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a freeing way to do things.
It's so true.
I have a podcast episode I'm going to record, I think, a month or so from now, but it's going to be around the lines of like, do I go to pastry school? Do I go to culinary school? Do I take these classes? And just talking about education. And education's great. It's a super great thing. But it's really interesting because sometimes people allow the fact that they don't have education to not do something. Whereas like you and me coming into this, at least my experience was like, I don't have money to go to pastry school and I want to learn how to do this, so I'm just going to figure it out.
Oh yes. Yeah, no, I will never knock education. Education is very important, but it's also very dependent upon the person. Some people just don't learn in the structured, rigorous, like the standard education. Like this is go to pastry school, you learn this, and this. Some people learn from it and they do amazing, and then other people it just doesn't fit. And it's important to know yourself and figure out how the best way. Yeah. I was gonna say,
and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like
I think that's the biggest thing,
right?
Because some people like try to go a certain way and they're like, oh, it doesn't work for me. That's fine.
Yeah. No,
everybody
for sure.
has different paths.
Oh, absolutely. And if you find something that you're passionate about and there's a class out there, go take it. Go learn a little bit more, but then allow yourself to be creative and to figure things out on your own. Take the time for you personally to really explore this new art form, this whatever it is that you're doing in your life. You just have to take that first little step, that first jump.
we could obviously talk probably more about these Springville cake competitions because we did a bunch of them, and over the next few years, I left to New York City, working in New York City for a few years. And then I think we competed again when I came back, I believe. We apparently, because 2013, 2014. But even while I was in New York, we stayed in contact as well. Like I did cakes a little bit out there, and I'd message every once in a while. We'd stay in contact. And then I moved back here to Utah in 2013. And then we started seeing each other again at Springville Cake Competition and kind of staying in touch. But I don't think it was until like 2015 till we actually like first started doing cakes together. Or do you have a different recollection? I think it was right before my shop opened.
Yeah, it was because you left. I was super sad because I'm like, what the cuss? But no, like you said, we kept in contact. I could message you and be like, how do I do this? What would you do here? And it was amazing. We competed back and forth. He'd win, I'd win, he'd win, I'd win. We'd go back and forth. It was great. It was this wonderful competition. And then once you moved back and then you started doing farmers markets, and I started coming to see you at farmers markets and buy your amazing addictive treats.
So yummy.
And, you know, you at that point, you hadn't really fleshed out the whole business. Was it a food truck? Was it a brick and mortar? Was it whatever it was? And it was fun to watch you grow that and to hear it, just the passion behind it. And you're just so excited about what was next and trying to figure it all out. But I think when we first started really coming together and starting making cakes is once you'd opened up the Mighty Baker Bake Shop down there in Provo, and you reached out because you had a cake, you needed a little help. And I was super excited because we'd talked a lot and we'd competed a lot against each other, but we had never actually worked together. It was this, okay, like, yeah, this is a good guy, this is my friend, we talk, but we'd never worked together. And for me, you know, at first it's like, I don't know, I've never made cakes with anyone before. Is this going to work? You know, what's the dynamic going to be like? You know, are we both going to be too strong-willed about how we want to do things? Are we going to butt heads? And we came together, and I think it was it
the truck?
I think it was the truck. I think it was the truck. I know, yeah. I'm going, I think it was
It was for Todd Peterson, the owner of Vivint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
And we came together with that, and I was a little nervous, and then we started going, and it was just pure fun. Like, that was all it was. There was no, if I say something, is he going to be upset that I want to try this a different way? Or am I going to only be able to do exactly what, you know, was said? No, we came together and we had fun and we just created. And I'd go, hey, what if you did that way? And you'd go, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And I'd be like, how would you do this? And you tell me, I'm like, oh, of course, why didn't I think of that? And it was just this instant, like, we're good. We've just got this and we can work together. And as we went through things like those first couple cakes, it was just effortless. We were able to almost just work in sync, and our styles were able to meld really well together. You know, when you have two collaborations of artists that have their own styles, sometimes you can look and you can see it and you're like, oh, that person did this and this person did that. And you can see the exact lines. And ours was able to just meld into each other and weave in and out. And I thought that we were really good at bringing out each other's strengths when it came to cake.
I remember feeling that too, because I'm a very like solo worker, right? And most artists are, right?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Like they don't want anybody telling them what to. That's one reason why I like working in the corporate America has not worked the best for me, because like I want to do my own thing. But there was such a synergistic relationship there, and it was so interesting. So I opened my shop in October of 2015, and we started doing some cakes together. And it was in 2016 that my shop was like right after we had opened, and I started hiring employees. And maybe this is a good question. I'm gonna ask you a question first here, because this will probably be funny. So, what inspired you to apply for Food Network competition shows in the beginning?
Really?
Yeah. Because she didn't, by the way.
Didn't.
So it's better to ask it that way. So what happened, Catrina?
You came to me and you're like, I've always wanted to do Cake Wars. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Whatever. And you're like, yeah, it's this really amazing show. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And you're like, hey, I want to apply. Will you be my assistant? I'm like, yeah, sure. And you're like, we probably will never get on. I'm like, okay, sweet. We'll never get on. You applied. They contact us back. They're like, yeah, we want you on the show. And then I went home and I got on YouTube and I looked up Cake Wars because I had no idea. I'd never seen a show before in my life. I watched it and I think I called you up and I'm like, what are you thinking? Are you crazy? I just sat there and I'm like, wait a minute. Because I am very solo, but I'm also pretty shy when it comes to cameras and pictures and things like that. But at that point, I'd already committed. And I'm sitting here going, I'm like, oh, Pete, you're going to push me out of comfort zones, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought you were crazy, to be completely honest.
I thought I was crazy. I remember my wife showed me the application and was telling me to apply to this show. And my first response was, no way. There's no way I'm going to get on TV and go compete. I'm a self-taught baker. I'm going to go compete against culinary trained people like pastry chefs. Like, am I really going to do this? Like, why? I'm like, I don't even have an assistant. Who would I take on? And I remember my wife saying, well, what about Catrina that you've decorated a couple cakes with her? Like, she'd be amazing. You should ask her to do it. And I'm like, I guess I can. I'll ask her to do it. And it all went really quick because
so fast.
Like, we got contacted really quick, and it was like, I remember calling you and be like, this is like actually happening, Catrina. Like, it's really happening.
We'll apply, and then maybe we'll hear back from them in a month or two. I swear, it's like you applied, and it was like 3 or 4 weeks, and boom, you got a call. Within a week after that, it's like, okay, now we're having a phone call, and we're gonna meet everybody, and I'm like, what is happening?
It was an intense process, and part of that was me having no clue, and also thinking like, there's no way. Like, I just barely started decorating cakes like not too long ago. I just started my shop. Like, there's got to be a lot of people applying to these.
For sure. Well, and even for me, I'm looking at it going like, I don't have recipes fleshed out. You know, I was just barely starting to be a scratch cake baker because at the beginning, I started out modifying cake mixes because I knew that was how you could start, right? Yeah. They've taken out the guesswork that is scratch baking, and you're just able to add a couple little things and get a good product. But I mean, I didn't feel confident in my scratch baking, and I'm going like, I don't know about this. I don't know everything I need to know, and I'm gonna go on TV, and they're all professionals, and it was crazy intense.
I was right there with you, and I remember having the conversation with you because, like, it's so interesting. I think in the cake industry, at least back years ago, I'm sure it's the same now. Like, a lot of people use doctored cake mixes. A lot of people do from scratch. At the time, I was just doing it as well, and so going into that. Right after I applied, or right before I applied, I started like trying to formulate recipes. Yeah. And some of those recipes that we went into that competition were like brand new recipes that we had just came up with.
The chocolate brownie pound cake, which is like the staple, most amazing chocolate cake there's ever been made, right? That came from this, and the push of like, okay, like I want to step up my game. I want to make something that is not everybody can just go and make and buy and do it. Like, you put in that effort to really figure out your recipes, and you're so good at that. You're so good at being able to know how to take flavors and just meld them together to where they just fit perfectly together. And that chocolate brownie pound cake, man, that got us through a lot of
Hey, it did. We'll hear about that one often. I think and actually, for those of you who are listening, the recipe is actually available on the Food Network website. So if you want to go bake the award-winning cake at your house, directions are there. So if you have any questions, let me know. But it was such an interesting experience. I remember going down to California and just having no even like clue of what we were getting ourselves into, like zero, right? And I remember being so shocked of like, we're on studio and it's starting,
right?
How did we get here? What thoughts were going through your mind?
Geez, just to start off with it, the flight. I hadn't flown in years. I think I'd only ever been on a plane like 1-2 times max. Like really, I just didn't fly. And then now I'm traveling with a friend and to California to do something I'd never done before. We get there. I remember they walked us out onto the stage to show us it. And it was just like, holy cow, this is real. We're actually here. Because before that, it was, the nerves of it all. But then you stepped on there and you saw the backgrounds and you saw the kitchens. And then all the things, behind the scenes magic that is creating any food show, it's just all of a sudden it's there. And it was exciting and it was so intimidating. It was so intimidating.
Yeah.
The people we competed against, amazing people, amazing artists. The fact that we've still been able to keep in contact with many of them through the years and been able to watch them grow in their different cake ways, and then also in just their lives in general has been a blessing. But man, it was intimidating.
Well, it was so intimidating too because you have time limits on the shows, and oftentimes, like when you think like reality TV, sometimes they think, wow, well maybe the time limits aren't real, but like the time limits, like they're real time limits, and once they start, and you're off to the races, and it's the pressure that you feel in there is like unlike I think any pressure I've ever felt before.
You also have the pressure of making something that in a kitchen you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
Which I think, when it comes back to it, that Springville art competition, having to do it on the tables in the big room, that might have helped us a little bit,
I like that.
Being able to just take those experiences of like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. I'll find it. But that to me is one of the hardest things is you're now the stress of doing it all, the stress of being there, the excitement of it all, and then you're trying to make something in an unfamiliar kitchen. You just don't know where anything is. So you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're just like, where's my spatula? Where's my rolling pin?
And then on top of that, you have cameras in your face the whole time. And luckily, they probably didn't ask you as many questions as they did me, but like the cameras are right in our face the whole time. And you had like a GoPro right in your face the whole time.
No, I quickly realized just how annoying the cameras can be. And they don't try to do it on purpose, but I learned quickly that they'd put a GoPro right in my face as I'm working on some little grunt or whatever it was for the Halo episode. And I remember just rolling my eyes and going, ugh, every time they would. And then, I learned quickly that if I said things that they probably couldn't put on camera, they left me alone for a minute.
I love that. That's so
And so then, they probably did talk to you a lot more than they did me because they're like, oh, never mind. She's saying things we can't put on the air.
And there's so many things that are uncomfortable that come at you. So whether it's them talking to you or whether you're in a time crunch or you have something go wrong or for the final challenge, right, after the main heat first, they kick somebody off the show, right, which is first a lot of pressure. And we made it past that, and then you get into the second, making your huge cake, and they give you a couple random assistants that you have no idea who they are, what they can do.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have 2 extra people you have to manage while you're trying to do the process.
But then also on top of that, they're there to make a show. And they're very clear about that. Like, we want you to make good cakes, and we want you to be able to be proud of the work that you do. But when it comes down to it, all those people and the whole reason you're there is to make good TV. So they're stopping you and they're like, hey, talk to that person. Yell across the kitchen, ask them what they're doing. And it's hard because I know for me, and I'm sure with you as well, is when you get going, you hyper focus. Like that is everything. And so to stop and talk, and it's talk through everything. Tell us what you're doing. What are you doing now? And I'm just like, I'm making a thing. Leave me alone. I'm making a thing.
Yeah. And it's hard because especially like all artists that are listening will appreciate this especially, but I think anybody who works on anything, like when you are working on something that you are passionate about and that you're good about, you get into these flow states where you're just like things are just flowing and things are going, things are coming. Then you're in that flow state, and then all of a sudden you have to be interrupted and then get back into that within seconds.
Nothing goes as planned when you're on there. you're always fighting something, some little thing that you plan out your thing. They give you a minute to look at what you need to do. But even when it comes down to it, it's you always are having to change what you're doing, adapt to the situation, and figure out the best way to move forward. Because you can't give up. You can't give up.
You can't give up, and you can't really undo things.
No. There's no undoing. There's no redos. There's no starting over.
Oh, man. So I want to ask you this. So we could talk for hours, I'm sure, just about this. But the moment when when I'm standing there and you're over with the other contestants and they're like about to announce the winner, I want to know what your thoughts were in those moments. And my thoughts in those moments were like, first off, I can't believe I'm standing among these three, like the last three people in this competition, and their cakes are incredible. I don't know how this is going to go. And I just remember just shaking. And I remember like I don't even know what happened. I kind of like blanked out for a minute. But I don't know what was going on for you.
Yeah, no, pretty much the same. I mean, nervous, and they were. Those ladies were amazing, and their cakes were amazing. And again, that self-doubt comes in of like, oh, did I do enough? Was I good enough? I don't want to be the reason that Pete does. It's not his name that's called, right?
That's heavy.
Sorry. It happens every time. I don't know what it is, but I remember just standing there, just shaking. My legs were shaking. And I kept having to tell myself, don't lock your knees, don't lock your knees, don't lock your knees. Don't pass out on national television. That would be really embarrassing. And I remember they got rid of one of the other contestants, and then it was just down to you and one other. And her cake was amazing. And I just sat there and I'm like, how is this happening? How is this happening? And when they called your name, I actually couldn't remember if that was your name or not.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wait, hold on. Like, that's Pete. Wait, that's him. We did it.
I was flabbergasted. Like, I couldn't even I couldn't even believe it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this now that I'm just doing audio on this podcast. So when I put it on YouTube, I'll put some pictures and stuff on here as we're going through. But it was just unbelievable. I remember that happening, and remember going out to eat that evening. And I think we went to we went to Buffalo Wild Wings.
We ate while we were out
Yeah.
there.
And I remember the exact moment. I think I have a picture on my phone too of just sitting across from you at the table and just realizing
Yep.
we just won.
Yeah.
Did that really happen?
You were sitting there, and it was still this moment of just overcome with emotions. And you're sitting there and you're reading your menu, and I look at you and I go, Pete, and you look up and I'm like, you just won Cake Wars. And I snapped a picture of you, and it's like my favorite picture of you ever, because just the pride and the excitement and just the dreams of that young person starting out, just wanting to make cakes and treats, and that it was like this moment of fulfillment. It was like, okay, you are that good. You did it. You fulfilled that dream of yours.
And on top of that right there, I 100% live by this right now. There's no way I would have won if I didn't have Catrina with me on that competition. Because it goes back to the synergistic way that we felt when we were decorating in my new bakery, right? It's the same thing. The reason that we were able to work well together is because we were able to build that synergy. And I think we're both pretty easygoing people, I think, and just want to have fun. And I think there's magic that happened there.
For sure.
And yeah, some good luck happened there.
Yes, good luck, good juju, whatever it is. Blessed to be able to work alongside somebody so talented. Because you say you couldn't do it without me, but I could have never done it without you either.
See, there we go. And it's the same. It's like there are those people that you meet through your life that you just jive with, and that's that. And that experience, I can't even. I am so glad I actually asked you in the first place and actually even decided to apply. Because going back, even with our Springville cake competitions, it would have been very easy in that moment to just really say, no, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
It would have been easier to say, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that. I don't want to do that. I mean, and I look out there, and I know a lot of people now even come to me and they're like, how do you do that? How do you go on shows? How do you do that? And I'm like, just do it. They're like, what? Well, I'm not as good. I'm not as good. I'm like, no, like today, Catrina and Pete would have made a completely different cake as we did back when we did the first Cake Wars. But they've got to take that jump. And I tell everybody, I'm like, just apply. Find it and apply. Keep applying. Keep applying until you get on there. Go and experience it. You can do it. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be a professional, well-trained baker. You just have to take the leap.
That's it right there, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a baker out there listening and you do cakes or cookies or whatever you do, and you've looked at any of these Food Network shows and you're like, no, I could never do it. Go try it. Just go jump out and do it. There's nothing that makes Catrina and I any more special than anybody else out there. It's just the fact that we just decided to push ourselves to do that hard thing, because everybody's capable of doing hard things. They just gotta it's that little leap.
You won't regret it. Win or lose, no matter what, you're walking away with experiences to put in your book of life. You've got that. You've got experience under your belt. And then you just keep trying, keep pushing.
So I remember coming back from Cake Wars, and of course, like I talked about this briefly on a past podcast of just how that affected my business at the time, all those kind of things. So we got back. Actually, it was 2016. Sorry, 2016 is when it was filmed, and I believe it was in March in 2016, and then the show was aired in August, I believe. Does that sound right? I think so. Anyway. So, but the dates are really important, though, because I was in my first year of business. We got back. It aired in August. So, August of 2016 is when it was on TV. And then, 4 months later, in December, okay, so 4 months. Like, I didn't realize until the other day how close these dates were. I was thinking about this again. So 4 months after that show was aired, December 15th, I'm driving and I am delivering a wedding cake. And I deliver this wedding cake, and right before or right after, I can't remember, I get a phone call from the producer of Cake Wars saying, hey, Pete, I think her name was Kim, and she's like, we got a bit of a problem. We're looking for another team to come on Cake Wars because we had a team drop out or something. And she's like, is there any way you and Catrina would be interested or available to do that? I'm like, well, when are we talking? Are we talking like month or what? And she's like, if you are able to do it, you would fly out tomorrow. And I was like, excuse me?
December 15th. Let's think about this. We both have families. It's Christmas time. It's a little crazy right then and there. Yeah. Oh, I remember clearly where I was and what I was doing the moment I got that phone call from you.
Oh, man.
And it was just like, hey, you want to do Cake Wars again? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll go do it again. That was fun. You're like, you want to do Cake Wars tomorrow? And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, hold on just 1 second. Like, tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. And I'm like, well, let me see what I can do. Called the husband. I'm like, hey, can I leave for LA tomorrow? And he's like, are you insane? I'm like, yeah, I'm crazy. I had a family party that I was missing, which when you go on these shows, one of the biggest things that like I will recommend for those people that are looking, like when you apply, keep it quiet. Don't tell people you've applied. Like they don't want people to know that you're going and doing this, right? It's that whole confidentiality. It's the hype of the show. It's whatever. But like they didn't want us to tell anyone where we were going. Like, don't tell anyone. I'm like, it's a week before Christmas. Like I have a family party. I have a dance review for my dance studio that I was teaching for and for my kids. And I'm like, and I'm going to walk away from that and just go to LA. Just, a week before Christmas. No big deal. But luckily, you have amazing people in your life that in your time of need step up and take care of things. My husband, my family, I had some coworkers that stepped up and learned my dances to help for all my dance studio. And we went. And It was less than 24 hours from the time they called to we were in the airport going, all right, let's go get on a plane.
That was the craziest wild ride because when they called me, I told her, I said, I'll try to call Catrina, but I'm like that's a lot to ask. And she's like, I understand, but we have nothing else we don't know what else to do. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try. So I called my wife and she's like, well, if Catrina says yes, you guys can't say no to the opportunity, right? It's like, this is a big opportunity. So this story gets even better too, you guys, because not only was it the day before, we're on the flight the next morning, we're trying to do some rough kind of strategy, just trying to think of like, okay, how are we going to do this going into this other competition? And it was crazy because we got there and we get to the studio and we're walking around and I think we start meeting some of the other competition, and all of a sudden, I think Catrina or myself, I can't remember who, asked the question, like, so who are we competing against? Like, is that like, who's everybody that's here? And then the producer happens to tell us this after we're in LA. I think we still would have gone anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I remember having this conversation with you, and it was probably on the plane. And I remember it was a crazy time for you with the bakery and everything. You were so tired. And I remember us having this conversation of like, well, you know, we're not mentally or physically prepared for this, but it's okay because we've done it before. So, you know, no matter what happens, we'll have fun, but we have that little advantage on all the other contestants. It's like, we know the stress. And then we get out there and that producer's like, oh yeah, champs versus champs, they're all winners. And I remember doubling over, hands on knees going, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm like, how long have they known that they're coming out there? Oh, they've known for like a month. I'm like, a month? Like, I was told that this was even a thing 24 hours ago. And so, as crazy as the first one was, and like the pure shock and the excitement, I think the second one was harder. Just for the fact that it was like, you were not mentally prepared for what you needed to do. You had not taken that time. The first one went fast. It went fast from the time we applied to the time that we got on there. It went fast, but we still had some weeks. We had a couple weeks to mentally prepare. This was just like, throw you to the wolves. We just need extra bodies. And that's kind of how I felt. I'm like, well, oh well. And we just kind of made that pact that we went, we don't care what happens. We're going to have fun. And we did. And we had an amazing time.
That right there was one of the most important, I think, moments because, like, I remember being in the exact same place. And that's the only place that I could find some solace of any sort. So I'm like, you know what? We've won Cake Wars before. Okay. So as long as we just have fun and just enjoy our time, then we'll do good work. And regardless of what happens, we'll be fine.
Right? I think our goal, have fun and make it past the first round. But if we don't make it past the first round, it's okay, have fun. Yeah. Which I think that going into that was the biggest thing that helped us. Because we were able to just go, doesn't matter, we're just going to have fun. And we did. And we went back and forth and had just a blast with each other. We were giggling the whole time. Everybody else is all stressed in theirs and we're laughing and not serious enough. So I'm sure the producers are like, man, will they just relax already?
Oh, I just had the funniest memory. Like, and us with our 36-pack of Mountain Dew cans, because we're coming the day before and we're like, we need whatever we can to like keep us like fueled through this thing. It was hilarious.
So yes, they went and got us a huge one. We drank that whole thing too. I think we had left like 5 cans. We probably vibrated the whole way home.
I am sure we did. Also, because as we're competing in this, we make it past the first heat, right? First off, we're like, whoa, all right, we're in the final on this thing. So we decide to make a cake that's taller than the Halo cake. The Halo cake was 3.5 feet tall, and this one we wanted to be at least 4 feet because we wanted to beat it, right?
Yep. Make it bigger.
So we're making this big Power Rangers cake, and we get this thing done, and some of the other competitors have some issues with theirs. Like there's some things going on, and if you watch the show, like Jason had some issues with his cake. He also was feeling a little bit sick, and so many things going on. And in the end, it kind of all felt like very big blur. And I remember all of a sudden we were like I was up there standing again in the final 2 people.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we had our struggles with that one, and we did a lot of new things. Isomalt. I'd never played with Isomalt. We pulled Isomalt out for the power discs in the Power Ranger suits and in the mountain so that we could have lights. So there was that. There was the height that was hard, and then there was busts. We made the busts of all the Power Rangers, which luckily enough we had done a bust cake just a couple weeks or months ago for the Allison show.
Yeah.
And that was the first bust cake either of us had ever done. We'd never done anything like that. So at least we had that little bit of experience, but we'd never made 5 bust cake, busts. And the cake was bigger. And, this is a little tidbit, but not that it ever showed, but you cut yourself and freaked me out. You remember that?
Right.
And the
medic was
took so slow.
Like, so you cut yourself? Like, yeah.
You're like, yes, but like you said, the clock doesn't stop. So at that point, it was just me and the assistants, and we're busting butt as fast as we can to get things done. And the medic slowly wrapping you up, and it wasn't a bad cut. He was fine, but like just to see your face of this pure like, I don't care, just wrap it up, give me a glove, and it was killing you inside, having to sit there and wait. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yes, but then to make it past that first round, we made it past the first, got to the second, made this huge cake, and everyone was struggling. It was hard. Everyone was having problems. We had problems, but ours relatively went together pretty easy. I was proud of it, especially with the fact that it was just like, again, not mentally prepared, not, we're just there to have fun, so we're having a good old time. Our assistants that they gave us were absolutely fantastic. That, we couldn't have done it without them.
Was that Katie that was with us?
I think that was the first one.
Maybe it was.
I don't remember. Names are hard. It's been a few years, but yeah, they were fantastic. And again, we made it through. You're standing up there with amazing cakes. Like that's, I don't
Jason,
Jason, oh my gosh. And Jason has competed in a million different things. And, he was just intimidating. He's an amazing artist. They all really are amazing artists. And to just stand there, I just sat there and I'm like, okay, well, hey, we got this far. No matter what, we've done better than we thought. We were, we didn't even know we were coming. Like, life is good. Life is good. Still shaking the whole time, But yeah, that one was crazy. And then they go and it's time and you make it through and it's just the 2 of you again. And I'm like, how are we here? How are we here again? Like, I don't even understand how we've done this, but okay, cool. Love the ride. And they called your name. And again, I think we both just stood there. I think we did, because I think the producers looked at me and went, you can go hug him.
Yeah.
Like, go. And I just sat there and I'm like, what? Like, how is that even possible?
If you watch the episode and look at my face, like, I'm just dumbfounded.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure, like, I just blacked out in the moment.
And the producers are like, go hug him. Go do something. And I'm just sitting here going, I'm like, okay, yeah. And I remember I ran over and I gave you a hug and we sat there and, they finished rapping. And then I stepped back and I just started bawling, which is just not like me, but I just started crying. And they're like, are you okay? What's going on? And I'm like, I can't believe we just did that. We've only known that we were here for this many hours, and how is this even possible? And I was just, I couldn't believe it. It was a cool experience, but it was so that release of just pressure, and it was just like, okay.
It was such a fun experience. I think about that often, and I remember coming back, and the same thing we did with the first Cake Wars is doing a viewing party with people, and it was just such a fun community thing, and just a fun, it felt so like, it just felt accomplished, right? We're just like, we just did something really cool.
Yeah. And the support of friends and family and community, that Provo showed us, and that from all over, just the amount of people who came out to root for you and for both of us, and just, celebrate the fact that we were even able to make it onto the show. And then, man, when they watching it and listening, because we know what happens, but listening to when they actually announce it and to hear all those people just be so excited and so supportive for you, it's the coolest feeling that they,
love it.
I'll put that on there too, so you guys can see. Yeah. You guys can see that, because that was really, really fun. Okay, so what would you say? I know you touched on a couple of these as we talked about both of the Cake Wars experiences, but what would you say are your main takeaways from your Cake Wars experiences and us competing together, and any challenges you faced maybe that you didn't mention or any that come up?
Definitely find your person to work with. If you need an assistant, like really find somebody you drive with really, really well, because that really is. And then put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to fail. It's gonna be hard, but also as you're going and competing and doing these things, like be okay with changing. Don't be so set in the goal that you're not willing to find that little path that'll take you where you need to go. I think a lot of the times we get such tunnel vision when with whatever it is, it's like, this is where I'm gonna need to be, this is the goal, and you just focus, which is great, but you have to be able to step back and look at the big picture and see maybe what you're focusing on so hard is just gonna make you have more struggles. Right? Like, be willing to take a step back or take a side route to get there, and really be able to let yourself have that creative freedom to try new things, make shortcuts. They're not always going to work. Like, let's be honest. There was a lot of things that I thought, I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this and it's going to work. And it didn't. And we fought with it. And at some point, you got to let it go and go, okay, nope, I'm going to try something else. And just be willing to change in that. That's probably the biggest with Cake Wars is that, and all of these competitions is you push and push and push. And at one point, you need to just be able to let things go and just go, okay, this is not working. What do I need to do? And you dig deep. And it's hard. I've seen with a lot of competitors in the shows that we've done and then shows that I've done as well, that sometimes they get too fixated on it has to work my way. It's my way or the highway. It has to be done like this. And they get so tied up that they become overwhelmed with the situation. They can't move past it. And at some point, you either need to go, okay, I'm done with it, walk away, or let's do it a different way. And be okay with it. Be okay with not having things work out exactly how you have planned.
You heard it from her right there. That's amazing. So those were such great experiences, and we were able to come home, like we said, and did some viewing parties, and it just helped. 2017 was the best year I had in business at the bake shop. If I look at sales wise, like it was bar none over the last 10 years of the Mighty Baker. 2017 was the best year in business. It was the second Cake Wars aired that year. It did hundreds of wedding cakes and birthday cakes and everything out of there, and thousands of cookies and desserts out of the shop that year. And a lot of that I attribute to the fact that we went on those shows to help give some really good attention to my shop. And it was something that I look back at and I'm like, that was another thing. And I'm very proud of myself in the past for those two, because I looked at those as some marketing opportunities, and because I do know marketing, I decided to utilize those to help that, right? Because you can't pay for that kind of marketing being on TV.
Win or lose, no matter what, it's looking good for you, right? Even those people that don't make it through, they're still being able to market to themselves of like, look, I'm good enough to make it onto this competition. Yeah, I might not have made it past very far, but you're able to showcase yourself. Yeah. So it really is killer when you can use that as marketing. And you're so good at that. You're so good at finding ways to, use these little things and find new fun ways to get out to people so that they can see what you can do.
I sure try.
You do a great job.
Okay.
So we're back in 2017, as I was mentioning. It was a great year in business, and we did so many fun things. And after that, our partnership and us making cakes together continued on. Like, we've made some really cool cakes over the years. I have a couple noted, and we won't go into a ton of these detailed necessarily unless you have a specific thing you wanted to talk about with any of these. But like our Traeger grill cakes, we did both of those. Those were some favorites.
Hey, it's always good when you have to have a pallet jack to move a cake.
I know. And we could have a ton of episodes just about some of those cakes. Maybe we'll have to record some others. And those of you listening, if you want to hear more details about stuff like that, let me know, and we'll record some more episodes about talking about some of those. But Yeah, like Traeger grill cakes. We did that airplane cake. That was a ton of fun. That was an interesting one because we had to produce part of it before you left on a vacation, and then I had to finish it later. That was an interesting one. Let's see, chair cakes. Do you remember the chair cakes?
Oh, all of them.
Piano cake. TV cake. Those are some BYU TV ones that we did.
The first ones that we did together.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note too, you were talking about some of your takeaways from Cake Wars and like really doing those hard things and pushing yourself. That is something I want to really point out really quick, because had I not ever applied to go on Cake Wars, or even applied to the very first cake competition where you and I met, would I have had the opportunity to make cakes for the Salt Lake Airport, for BYU TV, for Traeger, for all these huge no.
You might have got there eventually, but it definitely was able to jumpstart and I know it made me feel more comfortable. You know, after I'd gone through those big cakes, like I felt more confident going in of being able to problem solve. It's like, how do you make a cake that is the same size as a grill? Like, that's an undertaking. Mm-hmm. And you really, it's really, I feel like a lot of it was being able to do those things with Cake Wars that made you confident and comfortable to take on these bigger cakes.
It's so true, because all of these cakes, if you guys look at any of these pictures, and I'll post some of these on my account on Instagram probably so you can see them, but all of them were so unique. It's like, it's not just a cookie cutter birthday cake. It's like, every time you build one of these, even the 2 different Traeger cakes were very different construction.
Very different. And again, it's that being able to learn and grow, right? The first chair cake we made, it was awesome then, but the next one, it was that next level up, right? And it was the same with the Traeger. Like, we came with the Traeger, the first one, so good, everybody was impressed. We came back with the next one, and it was like that constant feeling of trying to outdo yourself and make yourself better. Being in competition with yourself to always grow and always improve, it's made them better.
Oh, it's so good. And we've had so many fun cakes. I just and most recently we did a bunch of cakes for the Salt Lake Airport that you helped me with too. I think we've done like 5 or 6 cakes for them. And unfortunately, I've kind of cut back a little bit doing as many cakes because I had some back injuries and things. But I love all the memories that we have of making cakes together. And don't worry, they're not done, ladies and gentlemen. We'll figure out a way to do this again. That's my one thing I was saying the other day is if I ever go back on TV, I need to go back with Catrina. But I don't know. I haven't stayed true to that myself. So,
well,
and she's gone on some of her own adventures too. So, but I wanted to add real quick too before we get into this next piece is that it's very safe to say that Catrina has been a very integral part of my success story in my bakery. And the people that you meet in your life are part of your success story. You wouldn't be where you are without certain people or certain events that have happened. And so just a huge thank you to her for even like saying yes to come on Cake Wars with me, she could have said no. She said, nope, sorry. I work solo, not doing it.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
But it's interesting. And I wrote down this in my notes. I want to say this, but knowing her has allowed me to follow my dreams and have someone to support me through the insanity. And that's such a huge thing because nobody, when you're in a specific industry like this, nobody really understands, right? Like, you can go talk to your spouse. I can talk to mine, talk to other people about some of the intricate things or different things in it. But, unless you're in it doing it, you don't know. And so I have very much appreciated having somebody there because over the years, as Catrina mentioned in the second Cake Wars experience, when we did that, I was so tired because I was running my shop, and I actually ended up closing my bake shop in 2018 because I ran myself ragged into the ground.
Yeah, you did.
And Catrina probably witnessed that. And she probably thought I was crazy, but
maybe a little bit, but you're fun kind of crazy.
Man. Okay. So before I go to this next question. Do you have any, like, I guess, memories that stand out to you from any of the cakes that we've done together that just stand out in your mind?
You know, I've been very grateful to get to work with you because of how well you push yourself and you get these fun cakes and these different ideas. Because I would have never been able to do any of these cakes without being able to work with you. Probably some of the fun ones when we did the Diamond Dash cake and we were frosting how many sheet cakes on our knees? Hundreds on our knees in the middle of a mall.
That was a funny one.
That was fun. And it was a crazy time. We had just barely dropped off the chair cake, our first chair cake. Then we went up and we were doing the Diamond Dash. And so we're frosting hundreds of sheet cakes on our knees, which it hurt. The things we do for cake. And then that exact same weekend, we're doing Roots Tech competition.
That's right.
All three of those, bang, bang, bang. I mean, and it was exhausting. And I remember coming back from the Diamond Dash one and you had to go up and do the whole filming thing and, you know, talk about it, which was awesome. But then you came back and you were so tired. And I think you pulled like probably 48 hours, no sleep, plus who knows. And you come back and you're just decorating your cake and your stained glass cake, which you'd never done a stained glass.
That's right, yeah.
It was your first one.
Yeah.
And you're just like, we'll pull this out for a competition. And, you know, you were just so tired, but you always pushed through and you were always just finding new fun ways and finding new fun cakes. So those are some of my favorites. The Traegers are always going to take like a special place in my heart, and airplane cakes and cakes for organizations to help other people. We did a Day of the Dead cake, which was probably one of my favorites just because it was fun to be able to stand back and do a cake to help an organization, right? Cool. It wasn't all about the money, which it isn't. You know, it's about the journey and it's about helping other people, and being able to do that through cake was always so fun.
I love it.
All the fun different things. I mean, I would not have the experiences or the skills in my tool belt that I have if I had never been able to work with you.
Oh, so fun.
Thank you.
And I have to say, that night that she's talking about when we were decorating these cakes for this competition, I was so tired that night. And I remember the thing that saved me that night was, first off, having Catrina there. But second thing, her parents are among some of the most amazing people. And I have to highlight them. So hopefully they listen to this. And if not, that's okay too. But they brought us sandwiches that evening, brought us food, like anything you need, because they knew how hard we had been working, and both of us are trying to finish this competition cake in middle of the night and just barely holding on. Yeah. So a huge thank you to them, because they've helped a lot out over the years.
They have. Yeah, Dad always loves it whenever we have crazy structures and stuff like that. My dad was the first to jump on and be like, hey, what can I do? What can I help you? Yeah. So yes, he loves that. I love when I come to him and be like, hey, Pete and I have got this cake. This is what we're thinking. He goes, okay, give me the stuff, I'll do it. And he's built a lot of our structures. Yes. He built our airplane structure. Yeah. Oh yes. And he's still like, he's awesome when it comes to that.
Yeah, we've got our own wood shop person to help us out. I've built some of my own, but they're like that huge coffin cake that we did. I built that huge structure. That was insane.
That was one of the more recent ones we've done.
Yeah.
That was big.
And if any of you that are listening did not hear that I did a coffin cake, go look back at pictures, because I made a full-size coffin cake. Katrina and I made this thing. It was insane. Absolutely insane. It was for somebody's birthday party. Super random. Anyway, so since we did the second Cake Wars, we've continued making cakes together. But it's interesting, as time has gone, we've kind of gone on a couple different separate journeys, which has been really interesting. I went on Halloween Baking Championship in 2019, and Catrina, she has gone on and competed in a couple other competitions on TV that I'll have her talk about here in a second. But I do want to note that Catrina has actually won more than I have on Food Network. It's so funny. I was looking at your Instagram and I was like, 3-time Food Network champion. Oh no! Like, do I need to go back on there? I'm just kidding. No, it's not a competition.
International. No, just kidding.
It's so funny. No, I love it. I love it so much because I love that Catrina has, like, she continues to push herself. And had we not competed in those, I don't know if you would have gone on to do these.
No, I can tell you right here now, I would not have.
So, with that said, tell us about what was the next show that you went on, and what brought you to that point?
Yeah, so the next show I went on was one for Disney Plus called Foodtastic. That one was a lot different than anything I'd done before, right? Before, everything had been with you and the just cakes, right? It was just cakes and sugar. And this one was different. And how I got on there was kind of a roundabout way. A lot of things, when people reach out to you, producers and talent scouts, they find you on Instagram or social media or something like that. And I had somebody reach out to me and they're like, hey, it's this amazing big company, big production. It's not Food Network. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. And they're like, life size this, life size that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to make big things. And they're like, we want you to put a team together. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, but we don't want you to just find cake artists. And I went, I'm sorry, what? They're like, we want you to find all food artists. And I'm going, I don't know anybody. I'm not the most social creature. And so I'm like, So I reached out to you. I'm like, hey, you want to do this? You're like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm like, okay. But I couldn't find anybody. And they kept pushing. They're like, we really don't want another cake artist. Find a butter carver. Find a cheese carver. And I'm like, find a what? I'm like, there's butter carvers? I'm like, again, I apparently am not very good at keeping up on things. I didn't know there was anything called Cake Wars. And now I'm like, butter carvers? Like the thing they do at the state fair? Like, I don't even know.
That's amazing.
So life was super crazy. COVID had just happened. And so I'm like, you know what? Nah, I'm just going to back out. Right? So I backed out and just kind of didn't think anything of it. And then months later, I got a phone call and they're like, hey, are you still interested in this? Because I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a team. And they're like, I think we found you a team. I'm like, okay, cool. And so they're like, well, if you're interested, we've had a couple people who've had some issues with putting teams together, and we think you'd work really well with this person. And they're like, there's two other guys. And at that point, I was really nervous because I've never worked with people who I don't know, right? And the only really person I've ever made cakes with is you. And forever and ever ago, a friend of mine when we very, very first started making cakes. And so the idea of going and being on a team with people that I don't know, I've never met, I don't know how they work, I don't know if our personalities will conflict, like that in and of itself was a stress. And I'm like, well, I'll talk to him. So luckily it was Lincoln from Flower House Cakes. He was who called me first, and he just called and wanted to talk. And we talked for a little bit, and it was weird because, weird in a good way, not weird bad way. It was weird because as we sat there and talked about the show and the information that he had gotten, because he'd actually gone through 3 different teams at that point. Like, he'd gotten all the way through the interview process, ready for them to give you, like, okay, this is your date, this is when you go, and then they backed out. And this had happened 2 other times, and so we were his 3rd team. And he called me, and we were just talking, and he's like, what do you think? And it was the weirdest thing because I felt like I'd known him, like, my whole life. It was just this instant friendship. Just instant. And I just went, you know what? Yeah, I'll do this. He goes, okay, I think you need to meet the other guy too. I'm like, all right, meet the other guy too. And then Aaron called me that night too. Come to find out, he grew up in the next town over from me, which, good old southern Utah down in Payson, it's small town. And I knew him. I'd never met him, but I knew his family. I knew sister-in-law. Like, our paths were there, but they never crossed.
That's cool.
And it was just one of those, like, okay, yeah, we'll do this. And so we went through the process, and we were instantly taken because Lincoln had gone through such a process to get on it and had already done all the things that they just went, okay, yep, this is the team, we're going. Which, that happens sometimes. And then it came to planning. And with this one, like, there was a lot of planning because it's not a cake show, right? Lincoln was a cake artist. Aaron was a pumpkin carver. So to me, I went, well, I don't know how we're going to put pumpkin and cake together, but it was, no, we want vegetables. We want fruit. We want breads. Don't just do cake. We want as many food items in as many different and interesting ways as you can to make this creation. And so that was really hard to step out of my comfort zone, because for me, it was, I can do cake, I can do chocolate, I can do ice malt. That's my comfort zone, is with the sugar. And now I'm having to figure out how to use peppers and how to use fruit and popcorn and cheese and bread and all these different things. And it was hard. And it was a lot of planning, a lot of talking things through. But again, I'd never met these guys. We fly out. The first time I met Lincoln was when we went to Soundstage to film. That was the first time I actually laid eyes on him and spoke to him in person. We'd Zoomed, but that was it. And so, again, I don't know how we're going to work. Neither of them had ever been on a show before. And actually, all the people we competed against, it was their first time competing. I was the only one on that episode that had any experience doing shows. So that was a little crazy.
I bet.
It was crazy. Our episodes was Cars, and which was awesome. Cars, the Disney Cars, the movie. Oh, yeah. I know you love that. When I
Lightning McQueen up here.
Yep. When I found that out, I just knew. I'm like, oh, dang it. Pete's gonna be so excited.
I was very excited to hear that it was Cars.
Yep. I knew you would. But we actually had to make, and it ended up being 8 feet, I believe, 8 feet long by 4.5, 5 feet wide. And we used everything we could. I mean, broccoli and celery and corn and popcorn and cheese. And the cheese, I hate cheese. Cheese, if you go and watch it, if you watch that episode, we had planned on making a cheesy smile because, we're, dad jokes and funniness and whatnot. And I spent so much time just trying to get the cheese to work, and it wasn't looking right, and it wasn't to my standard, but I fought it, and it finally got to the point where I just looked at him and I went, we're not doing this. And I ripped that whole front, and it was the whole front bumper of that car, and I ripped off all of that cheese, and I started over. And that was hard to do when you put that much work and effort into something, but I just had to let it go. And I went back to something I was comfortable with. I grabbed some modeling chocolate, and we went with that. And I'm happy we did, and I wish that hindsight, I wish I would have just not even thought about the cheese. Not even thought about the cheese, because it was such a lifesaver to move past that and be confident in the material I was using. Yeah. And this was a long one. We filmed for a full 24 hours. They broke it up, but it was 24 hours of filming on the one project.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's intense. And the outcome of it, were you guys happy with the outcome? How did it all kind of wrap together?
Super, super happy with the outcome. It was amazing. We were able to put together everything that we wanted. Obviously, we made steps along the way that we had to change. Going into it and looking at everybody else's cars, like the amount of talent that was on that show and the things. They're one of the teams that we competed against. They are pastry chefs out in Florida at one of the big fancy hotels. They make big gingerbread houses every year. There was a Olympic ice carver, and yes, apparently the Olympics have, ice carvers, and he's amazing. He is amazing at what he does. And he came out and he carved an engine for his car out of ice, and talk about intimidating. Like that was insane. And just to see the amount of talent and the camaraderie. I know with the other shows that we went on, like we reached out and we talked to those other competitors, and a lot of them have become really lifelong friends that I know that you've reached out to, I've reached out to, and just, talked to them, asked them questions, and it's been neat. It's been neat. But yes, we were very happy with the outcome. I'm not sure how, were able to actually walk away with the win.
Woo! I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. And you can find the episode on Disney Plus. Is that correct?
Yep, it's still on there. Disney
Okay.
Plus, the Cars episode.
Okay, that's awesome. So make sure you guys look that up. It's a fun episode. We had a little viewing party down at Payson High School, and it was a ton of fun watching that. That was so good. Okay, so after Foodtastic, what else has happened for you? I know you've had some other adventures happen as well. Let's jump into that.
I have had some other adventures. After Foodtastic, there was actually another team on Foodtastic from Utah. 3 ladies that I'd competed against at different competitions here in Utah, and they were out there, and they came back and they were looking for another assistant to go with them to Canada, which, great, out of the country, insane. I mean, that blows my mind a little bit, international. So they actually invited me again to go and do the Big Bake. And we actually ended up on the Big Bake holiday episode.
So fun.
Super fun. Again, this one was a little different. This was all cake, super big, and working again with people who I'd never worked with. But this time, working with women I'd never worked with. At that point, I'd only ever worked with men on different cake shows.
All right.
Yeah.
So that was a first.
That was a first. First all-girl group. And we went up there, and, Amy and Kylie, they are just absolutely amazing and amazing humans. And we had so much fun. That one, the Big Bake holiday, and even just Big Bake, the production crew is really, really fun up there. They just, they try to make it light. It also is probably one of the harder ones that I've done, even with Foodtastic, which was crazy with the different things.
What was it that made it a little bit harder?
So with this one is they wanted it big, right? So I'm like, I can do big. We've done big. But you also had to put 3 dynamic elements into it. So things had to move. Things had to, you could use smoke, you could make sound, you can, gravity defying, but they wanted lights and everything else. And so that was one of the harder things, because structure in cake is hard, but it's the most important. If your structure's not good, it's not going to work, right? We've all, I know both of us have had to learn how to make structure right. We've had cakes that our structure just didn't stand up to what we needed. It's just part of it. And so then being able to take that structure, and now you have to add in, how do I get these lights? How do I make this move? How do I hide this smoke machine? How do I create these elements and these different things to make it work with the theme of my cake and make it look seamless, right? Because anyone can throw lights on something, or anyone can leave some random little thing that moves, but to really add it in so that it's a whole picture and you're lost in the design and you can just feel it, the story come apart, just fall out in front of you. It's just, that's hard. It's really hard to figure out all those little pieces. And so that was hard. And we had 5 hours. That's it. And
Wow.
that's a lot. No extra assistants, just the 3 of us, 5 hours, tasting elements. You have to have tasting elements. There's surprises in it where you have to end up baking more things and taking more time away from your big project. And it's just, again, you're in an unfamiliar place. I'm in Canada, for heaven's sakes. I don't know anything up there. And now in kitchens, and it's crazy. But it was fun. It was so much fun. And the production crew and the judges and the host and everyone up there was just so amazing. And the talent that we competed against, again, just phenomenal and amazing people.
Catrina has just continued just on this fun. And can you find that episode anywhere? It's probably hard because it's Food Network Canada.
Yeah, I think I want to say maybe Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon Prime might still have it. But yeah, it's a harder one to find just because of the fact that it is Canada.
I will do my due diligence and try to find any links, and if there are any links, I'll include it in the show notes so that people have that as availability there. That is just so cool. I love that we've both continued going on other shows and just trying to keep pushing. And it's just been so fun. Okay, we're going to go into a few questions here. You ready? So some of these first questions might take a little bit more thought, and then we'll get to some of the other ones that are maybe a little bit lighter. How has participating in all of these shows impacted your baking career or personal life?
Yeah, participating in these shows it really teaches you to look at different things. I don't have a business, right? I don't have a business. This isn't my main source of income. This is still very much a hobby for me. It's an expensive hobby, but it's a hobby nonetheless. And it's given me the freedom of not having to worry about that bottom line of, am I making enough money? Am I going to be able to support my family? Am I going to be able to make ends meet? I've been able to just use this as a creative outlet to for my own personal gain, for fulfillment for myself, being able to just have these experiences. And I mean, that's really what it is. You know, a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's the most amazing thing. You're famous." Oh my gosh, people tell me I'm famous. It freaks me out. I'm not gonna lie, because I've never done this to be famous. I never did this so that people knew who I was. I did this so that I can say I did it. So that when it comes down to it, and I'm talking to my grandkids and my hopefully great grandkids about my life, I can go back and go, you know what? I know it's scary. I know it's hard, but put yourself out there, try something new, and be okay. Like I've said it before, be okay with failure. But if you're not willing to try it, you're never going to have those experiences. And that's what this whole life is about, right? Experiences. So that's what it's done most for me, is been able to give me a little bit more confidence, a little bit of going, okay, like, no, this is something I can do. And the experiences of trying new things. If it wasn't for that first competition, if it wasn't for my mom and my grandma before me teaching me the joy of baking and making those cakes, and then me in turn doing it again, competing with you pushing me to do things that are very uncomfortable for me, you know, you really have, be it push me off buildings. There's a story in another.
There is a story there. It's a story in LA. It's a good one. Don't worry, she's still alive.
I was still alive. There was no. It was yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay. So next question is how do you approach like recipe development or ingredient selection? Like just like. And I know you said you don't actually like run a business, let's say, per se, but like when you're baking things at home, let's say, and you're like baking something, like when it comes to recipes or ingredient selection, like how do you approach that?
A lot of trial and error. You know, and like I said, when it comes to recipe development and stuff like that is your strong point. Like you know how to put a recipe together and find those different tastes and make them just work. You know, I mean, we had to make a ketchup cake. How do you make ketchup and tomatoes taste good? Because you and I both hate tomatoes. And you did. And it's still to this day, my parents are constantly like, can Pete make that ketchup cake again? It's so good. Really trial and error. But also, like, good quality ingredients. Like, it's hard, especially now. Things are expensive. But there is a difference between using the cheap stuff and using the good stuff. Right? And the good stuff, it tastes better. But a lot of it is just trying it, you know. Find a good cake recipe. If you want to play with cake, find a good base cake recipe. And then don't be afraid to add something into it that you wouldn't, you know. Play with it. What make it for your family. Make it for your neighbors. Use your neighbors and your friends as tasters and just be like, hey, is this good? Because, you know, the good thing about good friends is they'll tell you if it tastes like crap. They'll be like, no, that's horrible. Don't ever put those together. That wasn't this. You know, find those people that are willing to give you honest feedback. And then also, don't be afraid to get honest feedback. Don't be upset if you make something and they go, wow, that sucks. Right? Because you have to learn. You have to make the bad to get to the good, and just try it. Just find new elements, new things, put them together. Don't be afraid to try new things. Until I met you, American buttercream all the way. There's nothing wrong with American buttercream. I'm just going to put that out there. A lot of bakers use American buttercream. It's great. It's stable. It does good. I will never go back. You taught me Italian meringue. It is everything I use now. If I have to make American buttercream for whatever reason, or a cream cheese or something, I'm like, why am I doing this?
That's so funny. I love that.
Because I didn't. I'm like, oh, I don't know. This Italian meringue buttercream, this is weird. It has a different mouthfeel. It has a different everything. But now it's like, oh yeah, if I'm making frosting for whatever, I'm like, oh, I'm making Italian because it's just so much better.
One, what we've learned over the years is it's so versatile for everything that we do.
It's amazing for carving. It's amazing for structure. You know, you cool that down and it's rock solid. Like, it's not going anywhere. And I've been able to carve a lot of buttercream that you couldn't do with American or whatever, but like Italian, it just works. And it's something that's different, right? It's not the traditional buy from the grocery store. It's that little bit of fancy. And there's definitely a learning curve. And there's still sometimes when it doesn't work and I'm cussing it. And I'm like, you dirty no good. Why I've made this a million times, why won't it work? And a lot of the times I've yelled and walked away, and my sweet husband walks in, he goes, don't worry, I'll fix it.
Yes.
And he's learned, and now he knows too much about buttercream.
That's incredible right there. I love that. Can you share some of your proudest moments as a baker, or what sets like your baked goods or your decorating apart from other people?
Some of my proudest moments, probably my first one was that Springville Art. I'm going to keep going back to it. When they announced who won, I ended up taking third at that competition, which blew my mind. But they announced my name, and my husband stood up and he just yelled, "That's my wife!" And it was one of those like, oh my gosh. So that one was amazing. Being able to watch all the different shows that I've been on, because you can't tell your family how things ended up. And so being able to watch those with my kids, with my family, and to be able to see the love and support from from my people. And, you know, like, I think now my kids finally look at me like I'm kind of cool. Because before it was, Pete is so cool. Still to this day, it's oh, Pete's so famous. Pete's so cool. And I'm like, hey, I've done things too. But now I ran into one of the ladies that works at the high school with my daughter, and she happened to tell me, she's like, did you know that your daughter told us in class that you're famous? And that was the cool thing about her. And I'm like, oh, that's really kind of weird, because I'd never really heard that before, of like, yeah, no, my mom's famous. I'm like, no, she's not. I'm not famous. Stop saying that. But that was, you know, that's probably been some of my best, like,
I love that, and I am so proud of Catrina for her continuing and going on in these other shows. And I think that's a cool little thing there, because it's and you said this a minute ago, but by each individual doing the uncomfortable thing and pushing themselves to that next level, you never know the impact of that. You really don't. And you're seeing some of the impacts with your daughters and in your support system, but you don't see that. But it's so huge. And it's the way you show up, the way that you push yourself to do that hard thing, that makes an impact in people that are around you.
it does.
That's cool.
It's fun.
That's so cool.
It's fun.
I love that. Okay, how do you stay current with new trends and techniques in baking and caking industry?
Yeah, well, it's hard, right? It's an industry that's nonstop changing. You know, it's the next new thing, it's the next new design, and that's one of the things that's competition has been really good for me, is that I've been able to see what other people are doing and push myself to teach myself that. One of the big ones that most recently that I've been really focusing on and working hard to become better at is isomalt. Right? Isomalt is, it's fun. It's also kind of scary because it's really, really hot. And I tried it out on my first time, you know, thinking I'm self-taught. I don't need no help. And I ended up burning myself really, really badly. I mean, melted sugar, it sucks. It hurts.
Hot.
It's so, so hot. I mean, you're working at things that are 300 degrees, and I'm pouring it on my hands, and, you know, I'm not smart enough to remember to put on a glove when I'm wearing it. And so I have found for some things, getting some expert advice and taking a class. So I bit the bullet. I went, okay, I don't know how to do this. I can't learn this on my own. I'm going to find somebody. And I was actually lucky enough that Sydney from Simi Cakes was coming to Utah, and she was doing some classes. And to be able to go and put your pride aside of like, I know how to do everything, it's fine. And being willing to know like, hey, I don't know how to do this and I need help. And that was a little hard, right? Because I'm like, I've taught myself everything so far. I don't need this. And to be able to go, no, if I really want to get better at this, I'm going to need some help. And so I went and I took some classes, and I love ice malt. It's so fun to be able to know how to blow things to look like glass. You know, it's been a fun medium to explore and get into. I made a cake one time where I put a mermaid in a bottle, and that was hard. And I even remember reaching out to Sydney and asking her like, hey, have you ever done something like this? And she went, nope, I haven't. Let me know how it turns out. And so through trial and error of trying new things, I was able to create that and do something new and different.
That's so cool.
It's fun. It's
That's
fun
amazing.
to try new things. And, you know, the cakes, the different styles and whatnot, try them out. Stay on Instagram. Follow cake people. Follow people who inspire you. You know, like, yeah, I've been on shows. You and I have been on shows. We've done that. But there are still cake artists out there that I cannot wait to meet. Right? Like, I would love to meet Liz Merrick. She is amazing. The things that she does with sugar blows my mind. I was actually fortunate enough to meet Colette, who her books is what I learned from. I didn't even know what chocolate ganache was. And her books taught me, and it was neat just to be able to sit with the person. She had no idea who I was. She had no idea the impact that she had on my life and my want to grow as an artist in this medium, and be able to sit and talk with her and meet with her. And I did. I told her, I said, you know what? You're the reason. Your books are what really kept me going in this, looking at them, inspiring me. And she actually judged one of my cakes, which was cool. It was like this full circle of like, this is somebody I just strive to be like. I want to learn how to do these things that she does, to now she's judging me. And to see the things that she said about my cake, it was just one of those moments of like, oh, okay, that's really cool.
Oh, that is such a cool experience. I love that too, because that's something that's really hard, I think, for people who are self-driven and are self-taught on things. At least that's for me. It's from a pride standpoint. Like, you almost don't want to take classes, but once you actually do decide to learn from somebody else, like, there's so much value there.
Sure.
And that's such a dangerous place to be in too, to hold yourself there like that you think you know everything or whatever, right? Like, that's not hopeful.
Oh, for sure.
And if you can get past that.
And I mean, and I've taken some other classes, you know, since then. I've kind of opened myself up to stuff, different modeling classes, and like, I know how to model. I've done that for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's been something that, like, that's been one of my focuses. But I went and I took a figure class from Sachiko, who is incredible. And her style is so different from my style. And to be able to learn and try new things, can I do them just like her? No. Do I want to do them just like her? No. I don't want to be the same person as Sachiko. I want to be me, but I want to take all these little things I've learned from all these different people to make my art better. And to be able to go, okay, like, I want to learn. And some of the classes I've taken, they've not been like, mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh, I didn't ever think about this. A lot of them have been just like, have you ever looked at it doing this way, or looked at it doing this way, and tried this, or used this product, or used this tool? And it's like, oh, hey, that actually does work better than what I'm doing. It's not like blowing my mind, but it's being able to look at a different perspective. Look at it from somebody else's angle, somebody else's eyes, trying new things, seeing if it works for you. It really, it helps.
Looking at things from a different perspective is something I try to do often and try to ask people, because I get caught often in like just being in one little place, but then being able to see a different perspective, it just opens up things and helps you become a more rounded person, right? A more rounded artist. What advice would you give to aspiring bakers who want to take their skills to the next level? Whether that's business or whether it's competition, whatever.
Just keep going. Try new things. Don't be afraid of new things. If competition isn't your thing, like, that's fine. For some people, competition isn't. They don't thrive in that environment. But being able to look and find new things, watch people who inspire you, don't ever stop trying to learn and improve. And that's the biggest. Be it with ingredients. Don't be afraid to try and put ketchup in a cake, or corn, or blue cheese, or whatever it is, or random durian fruit. Who knows? Don't be afraid of it. Because, again, the worst case scenario, it tastes gross. And that happens. And you learn and you go, okay, I'm not going to use that. Or I'm going to use that again, and I'm going to figure out how to make it taste good. Have the drive to keep going no matter what. Even if it's hard, look at it a different way. Try a different thing. Don't give up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you give us a sneak peek into any exciting projects or events you have coming up?
Or what are you working on these days?
What am I working on these days? These days I'm taking a little bit of a break.
Nice.
It's kind of been funky. Cake Wars was back to back, and Foodtastic and the Big Bake back to back, and you get burnt out. And it's okay to take a little time for yourself and go, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna put this on the back burner for a little bit. I'm in a time in my life right now where I got some teenage girls, and what they're doing and their dreams and aspirations, they're on the front burner right now. Cake is still there, making wedding cakes, making birthday cakes, but at this point right now in my life, my kids and my family and what they want to accomplish, that's in the front burner.
Oh, I love that. I love that for you. And I love your family. They're amazing. They're so good. They've been very supportive. And it's been amazing over the years, because her family, her parents, her grandma, her husband, like her kids, like have all pitched in to allow Catrina to come help me in times of need over the years. And I have been very grateful. So very good. Okay. So, all right, now we have a final couple questions, and some of the last couple are the most important ones that we're going to get to. These other ones are kind of quick ones to just kind of go through. So hopefully you're ready here. So what is the best concert you have ever attended?
Oh, best concert I've ever attended. I am going to go with the Avett Brothers. Me and my family love the Avett Brothers, and I've actually been able to see them before they got really big, and then also just most recently with my parents. Going to a concert with your parents is like awesome. Also, second, can I do two?
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a fun story. My oldest daughter, she's been following this artist, and they just so happened to be coming to Utah. All of their shows sold out. Super sad. She was super bummed. We were coming back from Provo, and the artist had got on social media and was like, hey, I've got all these extra tickets. I got 30 extra tickets. First people here to Velour here in Provo. Get in. And she's like, Mom. And I'm like, okay. So we stopped everything to go to a concert with my 16-year-old, and we stood out in the cold, and we got there, and all the tickets were gone. And we stood there, and I'm like, nope, I'm not leaving. I'm like, we can hear them through the walls. We will stand here in the cold all night. We were actually able to go in. They found a little extra room, and I took my daughter to the most impromptu concert I've ever been to. No clue who the artist was. Really good artist, actually, but no clue. Made her night. So much fun. Just instant, let's do this. I actually have 4 concerts I'm going to this year. I already have tickets for.
So good. Katrina and I could probably have a whole podcast just about the music that we have shared with
Right,
each other over
right.
the years.
Wait, how
So
many concerts? 2 concerts. All the music we play. Oh, yeah.
Katrina knows all my bizarre music interests. I love it. What is the most memorable dessert that you have ever had?
Most memorable dessert I've ever had. That's a hard one to go through. I think the most memorable dessert run I've ever done was with you out in California when we had that extra couple hours and we just went on a walking tour down in, where was it, Beverly Hills or somewhere? I don't even know. I really don't even know where it was. And it was all these little dessert shops that you knew from New York, and you're like, hey, try this. We ate so much. But it was amazing to try all these different things. And that's something that our time together has really taught me. Try new things. You're so good at like, no, try this, try this, try this. And every time I'm like, where has this been my whole life? So I can't pinpoint a single dessert. I love desserts. I love them. But that was so much fun to go and try all those new things that I wouldn't normally do.
Some of these questions are hard. I wrote these down and I'm like, I don't know if I could answer these, but I got to ask them because they're things I'm so interested in.
Well, kind of answer.
Yeah. What occupation other than, I guess you've had a lot of different occupations and different jobs like over the years, but outside of, let's say, cake decorating and being like a professional at cake artistry, right? Outside of that occupation or hobby or however you want to call that, is there another occupation that you've always been like, oh, you know, I would really love to do this? Or if I didn't do cake decorating, I would have done this.
That's really hard because I still tell my kids that I'm 29 and holding, and I still don't know. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. No matter what it was, it would end up in some form of arts. Something that is creative. My brain and my personality, I crave creativity. I have a lot of artistic hobbies. I love to wood burn. Wood burn is one of those things that I just really love. It's a different medium, but anything artistic. And I have had a lot of different occupations. I taught art to elementary school kids, and that was amazing. That was so much fun to introduce them to different art mediums. But no matter what it would definitely be based on arts.
Okay, so it'd be in the creativity area. I love that. Okay. Do you have any cake or dessert fail stories that come to mind?
Oh, so many. Knock on wood, I've yet to like ruin a cake in transportation. So, I remember one of the very first cakes I ever made as a kid. I didn't know anything about cakes. And I was making it at a friend's house, and we're like, oh, we're gonna make frosting. Oh, you put water in frosting. Totally put water in frosting. You don't put water in frosting. It was a water puddle. It was so horrible. It was so, so bad. And that, oh gosh, like I sit back and I go, why do I like cake? I was horrible at it when I first started. I've had a lot of cake fails via colors and different things that I've used and just haven't turned out the way that I wanted it to. And you gotta roll with it. You just gotta go. I mean, man, I did some really weird things while I was learning, and I look back at it and I go, what was I thinking?
It's so funny, isn't it?
I've had cakes completely crumble under me. I had one of my competition cakes just completely fall apart just because I hadn't put enough effort into the structure. And I didn't know enough about the medium and what I was using and the weight of cake. Cake is heavy. It's not like, light and fluffy. No, that stuff adds up, and it can be a mess when you don't structure it right. So I was in the middle of a competition, 5 minutes left, and a big portion of it crumbled. And I had to just figure out how to make it work.
Oh, man.
It was hard. It was heartbreaking.
Thank you for digging into the things that sometimes we forget about on purpose in our brains.
Yeah, you try really hard to forget those things. You're like, why did I ever do that?
Oh, man. Right now, are there any books or podcasts that you listen to that have been particularly inspiring to you lately?
Well, besides yours.
Hey, I didn't plug that, guys. But thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
If you haven't listened to the rest of my podcast, go back and listen to all 39 episodes. Anyway.
Where podcasts can be found.
Yes. That's funny. But no, like anything you've read or listened to lately that it's like that has really inspired you, helped you look at things differently.
Well, again, like podcasts, yours is awesome. I have a couple other friends that do some podcasts that are great. One of my favorite podcasts is No Dumb Questions. Has nothing to do with baking or anything like that. It's really science and history. They do an amazing job, and it's fun to look at, again, different people's perspectives. Reading wise, books wise, like anything that gets me out of the world that just makes things different. It's just, I don't know. I love that.
What's the reason I like to ask that question is because, outside of the hobbies or jobs or working, family, whatever, there's so many things going on, and I like to know like what helps people, what helps inspire people and help them continue going. Lastly, 2 questions. Actually, 3 questions.
Okay.
What have you enjoyed most about being a baker and being a cake artist? Like what like if you were to distill it down, like what do you think it is that really has drawn you in and caused you to follow quite a long journey so far?
A pretty long journey. I think that it's just kind of a fun, different medium, right? It's hard to work with things that are edible, right? And being able to push through it and try different new things, and it's always evolving, right? It's never the same thing over and over and over again, no matter what it is. Even if you're doing the exact same unicorn cake, it's different every single time and trying different new things, and so it's never stale. The cake industry and the baking industry, it's never stale. You hope it's never stale, right? That's bad if it is stale. But it's going through and it's trying new things and seeing new things. And then also when it comes down to it, I think the part that I've liked the most about being a cake artist and having the experiences I have is being able to meet other people with the same passions and the same interests as I, in different walks of life. Different people from different places in the world and with different backgrounds and different stories, and we all have this common thing of cakes and sweets are flippin' awesome. And to be able to, even for a moment, just for a second, to be able to be part of their life and to interact with them. And I know that everybody who I've competed against and met through all of our different experiences, they've changed me for the better. Even if the smallest amount, it's being a part of other people's stories.
What keeps you motivated to keep going each day?
Motivated, oh geez, days are hard. Sometimes, life is hard. I know we talked about this earlier. It's just, it's the grind. It's the nonstop. It's the not being able to, things don't always go the way you want them to. They really don't. And it's the struggle. And being able to push through that and finding the good, even in the darkest storm, being able to find that light and push through. My family, my friends, that's when time gets hard and life gets hard and things are just miserable. When it comes down to it, I'm doing this, I'm working through it. I'm pushing through the hard for my family, for my friends, to make a positive outlook for them, and to also, when it's all said and done and I leave this world, I want people to be able to say, she was kind, she was a light, and she was a good person, and just continuing to push through that.
And the last question to bring us home is any other pieces of wisdom that you would like to impart on our listeners?
We've talked about a lot of things, and we've had a lot of experiences, and probably, we've talked about it, and I'd probably just say it again, don't be afraid. Try new things, find your people, and reach out. Just do it. Take that step. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be scared. It's how we learn. It's how we grow. Do it. Take the leap and just see where it takes you.
And I'll just finish off with a couple of things, as I think that is so huge, especially too, because if you think about like Catrina and I, if you're out there listening and that you've thought about or even had questions about the bakery industry, reach out to somebody and ask them. I mean, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on Instagram, like ask me, or ask somebody that's local that is in the industry that you're interested in. Not even if it's not baking or cake, right? It's like anything that you want to be involved with, feel free to reach out and just ask, because the worst thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to tell you no.
It might be intimidating for them to reach out, for you to reach out to somebody that you look at and you go, oh man, they know so much more. They don't want to talk to me, but man, that is my favorite. I love when people reach out to me and they're like, hey, how would you do this? Or can you give me some suggestions on how to do this? Or, I love that. I love it so much because I'm able to take my years of experience and my passions and be able to help somebody. Like, I want them to succeed. I want them to be able to make amazing cakes. I want to see these people that come and ask me like, hey, how do you apply? Or hey, how do you do this? I want to see them on the next shows. I want to see them, their Instagram, their social media improving, their cakes improving. I want to be able to leave a piece of me, a piece of my knowledge, and be part of their story and watch them flourish.
Oh, I love
So do
that.
it. Ask us. Please ask us. I love it so much.
That goes with a topic I talked about in my podcast a little bit ago about kindness, and about just kindness to yourself and also to others, especially in your industry. Like, we're all in it together. Like, let's work together. If you have somebody in your neighborhood even that sells cakes too, like, reach out to them, see what you can do to partner up instead of like being cold.
Well, and we've talked about this before. Like, there can't just be one cake artist. You can't do all the cakes yourself. It's okay. Like, we need other people. Like, there's no way we could even do all the cakes in Provo. It's just not even possible. We need other people. And you want other people there. You want to support them. You want to have that because, you never know what's going to happen. You reach out, you're helpful, you're supportive of this person gets bogged down, and they call you, and then you end up on television.
Exactly. It's so true. It's so true. Oh man, it has been such a pleasure today, and I am so excited that Catrina is my first guest on my podcast, and I'm so stoked about this. And it's going to be probably the longest podcast too, and I'm thinking my interview podcast will probably be more like maybe hour to 2 hours, depending on what I talk about with different people. And some of my takeaways from this are: anybody out there wanting to grow and develop personal development, professional development, just push yourself to do that next thing and believe in yourself, and also reach out to others in the industry. And with that said, we're going to end off today. I hope all of you are having an amazing day. Remember to do something today to make your day just that much more mighty, and join us again for next week's podcast. And as always, we will have a great time. So come on back. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Season 2 is going to be incredible, so please keep joining us. The Mighty Baker has a lot of exciting things going on. Head to themightybaker.com or follow us on social media at The Mighty Baker to stay updated on what we have coming down the pipeline. Are you or someone you know a bakery business owner? If so, you gotta check out my bakery business coaching. I am now taking on one-on-one clients and helping them create sweet success in their bakery business and their life. Head to bakerybusinesscoach.com to learn more about my coaching program and sign up for a free 30-minute coaching session. I want to coach you on any bakery business problem that is holding you back from growing and from enjoying your everyday life. Please join us next time on the Mighty Baker podcast. This is your host, Pete Tidwell, signing off and reminding you to make your day a mighty one.